What's up, Huskies? Welcome back to episode 5 of On the Big Screen. My name is Sofia and
My name is Ben Parmalee.
and today we'll be talking about 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple.
The Bone Temple is the second movie in the 28 Years Later trilogy and follows people in England who have to survive after a virus replaced a majority of the population with infected zombie-like people 28 years ago. This one continues the story and expands the characters and world. So what did you think?
I definitely think that I should have rewatched the last 20 minutes of the last film because I completely forgot about the ending to the first film that came out last year to this trilogy. So I definitely walked into this movie a little bit confused and had to kind of get my grounding again. But I will say that I think this movie and the last movie could have been one.
Yeah, so the reception for the last movie, that by the way came out literally 6 months earlier, was kind of mixed. Some people didn't really like it. But what's interesting is that a lot of people, when they saw this one, they had a double bill screening, so they saw the first one and the second one back to back, and that made them like the first one, and then they kind of appreciated the whole story more. But it is true that, yes, they were filmed literally back to back, so it's kind of like part 1 and 2 of the same story.
Yeah, and then I walked in knowing, okay, this is part 2, cool. I did not know it was a trilogy, so we went through that whole movie, and then at the end, it introduced another plot point that's going to be the main focus of the third movie. So it kind of felt like a filler episode almost.
And what's interesting is that this isn't the second movie of the whole franchise. There's 2 movies before, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. And 28 Days was directed by Danny Boyle, and so was the first 28 Years Later, which came out earlier this year, as we said. And the thing is, despite this being a part 2 of 28 Years Later, it was not directed by Danny Boyle. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, who is a little lesser known. She's directed a couple movies like Candyman and The Marvels, which overall her filmography isn't exactly critically acclaimed. I don't think the critics really like it. However, this movie has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the IMDb ratings are going strong, and everyone is enjoying this one.
Honestly, I looked at the Letterboxd reviews because my friends have officially got me into, I don't know why, relying on Letterboxd for the utmost important reviews. And even then it was a 4.0 or 4.4, which is insanely hard to come around on Letterboxd because people are picky on there. And I was really shocked because honestly, in my opinion, I didn't really like this movie as a whole. I think it was very gory and it was very cinematic. I do think it was good to see in a theater, but I don't know. I found it hard to care about the characters or really like being around them in the movie, having to be with them while watching this movie. And I think that's a really big asset to have in keeping me entertained.
Yeah, and before I hit the characters myself, I'm just going to go back to the gore and say that, well, a lot of movies, horror movies specifically, they have a lot of gore, and it's whatever. We're almost desensitized because it's so, we know it's fake, whatever. But this movie, you're not desensitized. You are sensitive to this gore, and it might make you feel some things, and that just depends on the person. Personally, I think that enhanced the experience. Yes, I was disgusted, but I think it's good that it disgusted me because I'm feeling something. But if that's not your thing and you're just totally grossed out by it, then you might want to skip out this one because there are some brutal scenes.
As you said, I think a lot of the big, not that this is a big horror franchise, but a lot of those Halloween and Scream, the slasher films are very, you don't even really take a second look at the gore. You don't even really notice it anymore. And this movie was definitely, it really highlighted the inhumane aspect of this group of, I don't know what you call it, vigilantes or a religious cult.
They're a cult, yeah.
A cult. It really highlighted how insane and inhumane these people were with the things that they were doing.
In contrast, the main character, Dr. Ian Kelson, is kind of the complete opposite of the satanic people-killing cult. He is essentially hope for humanity, as his efforts are essentially trying to reverse the virus and doing whatever he can to stop the outbreak and change England as it is and make it go back to normal.
I was going to say, I love how you said that he's kind of the hope, because you see that this doctor had a little underground room where he stayed to be safe at night, and he had old photographs of before this apocalyptic state was in Britain, and he still had a record player. He was still playing records that we all know of. He was playing Iron Maiden. He was playing Radiohead. And, it kind of
Don't forget Duran Duran.
Duran Duran. I saw that and I was like, wait, no, pick that one. But, it kind of shows that he's still holding on to the past and the history.
Yeah, so in a vacuum, this movie is essentially about hope versus nihilism, where this cult is they've given up, they're just going to kill people and just go crazy, whatever, it's the apocalypse, who cares, versus the hope, Dr. Ian Kelson, he's going to do whatever he can to make things better.
I will say that this movie took place in Britain, and it definitely highlighted the beauty of Britain and their islands and just the green of everything. I think that was my favorite part of the movie. I really loved these scenic views, especially when we see the Doctor kind of just doing his daily tasks in this like mountainside, I don't know, hillside. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, usually when we think apocalypse, we think like, oh, dark, dirty, whatever, garbage, trash, everything's on fire. But this was very, very beautiful somehow. Everything's green, everything's nice, except for the people who live in it. But as far as the scenery goes, it's a very pleasant thing to look at.
For those of you who have seen the movie already or who don't care about spoilers, we are going to talk about the ending and its implications for the third movie. But for those of you who haven't watched or don't want it to be spoiled, we can give the ratings and whether we think the movie is worth it real quick.
Yeah, so I'm a little biased. I'm really into this franchise. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but I love this movie. I'd give it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I would say it's absolutely worth it to watch it on the big screen. Go support this movie. It hasn't made too much in the box office yet, so in order to get that third one pumped out, we really got to see it in theaters and get that money pumping.
For my rating, I think I'm going to bring up a point that you brought up earlier with watching the first and second at once. I think this movie would be really good if you watched the second and the third that has yet to be released all in one go, because I think you're left at the end like waiting for more. But as a standalone, I think it was good for what it was trying to do. So for people who like this franchise, I think it was a great movie, probably 4 stars. But for me personally, I didn't really like it. So I didn't rate it at all because I felt like I couldn't really speak on that because I don't like this kind of movie.
All right, now, heavy spoiler alert. We're going to discuss the ending. So if you want to see the movie, click off this video. Goodbye. We love you all. But for those who want to know, who want to discuss the ending, here we go.
One of the most interesting and borderline funny, ironic things about the ending that I loved is the fact that the leader of that Jimmy clan, the original Jimmy, the way he died was by his own belief. And I think when that doctor came up with that idea of like, oh, you know, the son of God had to be crucified and sacrificed. If you're the son of Satan, then why don't you sacrifice yourself as well? I was laughing in my seat. I was like, yeah, like, why don't you walk up to that cross? How about that?
I think that was really cool. But to really understand Jimmy Crystal's character, go back to the first movie, and it opens up with a sequence of this little kid. He's watching Teletubbies with all his friends, and then suddenly his whole family is being murdered by what are essentially zombies, and then he flees to the church, whatever. He sees his father going down on his knees and talking about, yes, heaven, hello, hello. And then he gets eaten, and he watches his father die, and he runs away and survives. That little kid is Jimmy Crystal. Probably knew that if you watched the movie. I don't know. It's kind of obvious. But I just think that's really cool because essentially this kid who's 8 years old and all he knows is Teletubbies, is just an innocent little child, gets all this trauma, his whole family dies, and he is completely shattered as a person. He can't develop. He essentially has arrested development because throughout the 28 years later, the Bone Temple, he's doing the Teletubby dance. He's literally a kid that wants to kill people because he's so traumatized by all this killing that shaped his childhood, and that's why he is who he is today. And as far as why he worships Satan is because his father was super religious, and then he dies at the hand of what he believes to be demons, and that he essentially believes that because he survived that attack that he is Satan's son and that he must sacrifice to Old Neck.
So he kind of used this logic of sacrificing people to Satan in order to, I don't know, please him, keep him happy as his duty as his son. He kind of used this as a fear tactic amongst his fingers, as he called them, his little group of Jimmies. But he also used it as a fear tactic towards others, and he kind of uses to really create this little cult of, if you don't do these things, like, you're also going to be suffered at the fate of this god.
And I think it was interesting that, like, even though he believed he was his son, he still didn't approach Old Neck, or who he believed to be Old Neck, with like, hey, Dad, whatever. Like, when he went up to Dr. Ian Kelson, you could tell he was scared walking through the bone castle, as he thought it was, and that clearly he's his servant, but he's not all buddy-buddy, and that he's still afraid of this devil character.
It made me think in that scene, like when one of the Jimmies came back and said, oh, I saw Old Nick with my own eyes, and, you know, Jimmy Crystal was kind of taken aback and he was shocked. My initial thought was that he had made all this up and that he was,
me too.
You know, because at first I did not know that Old Nick was referencing Satan. I thought that Jimmy Crystal made up his own. Right. I was like, Santa Claus?
Yeah, literally.
I was like, Old Saint Nick. I thought he made up this religion, and that this Jimmy, in saying that she actually saw this god, was, you know, showing a hole in his logic and like, oh no, like, what am I supposed to do because this god doesn't exist? Yeah. I made it up. That's what I originally thought. So I do like your point on, you know, him approaching this man not knowing if this is his quote unquote dad or not. My favorite part of the third act are the ending scenes. despite the really cool rock and roll scene where we have, borderline Voldemort jamming out to Iron Maiden. I really appreciated the scene where Samson, which is this alpha, extra strong, like the epitome of these monsters, like an actual built one that is scary, kind of, develops this friendship, one could call, with the doctor, where the doctor is helping him with morphine and helping him release his pain. But also we see throughout the movie him starting to the monster starting to regain his consciousness and regain his memories. And we see him having flashbacks of when he was a human and on a train. And then at the very end of the movie, Samson, the monster, regains fully his consciousness. He can speak. He knows what's going on. But then the doctor dies. And it was definitely a really sad scene of like, this person gave you life back. He brought your memories back. He cured you. And then he died basically in the process.
Yeah, I was personally heartbroken when Dr. Kelson died because I love that guy. First of all, he's just dancing with his buddy stoned in the fields of his bone palace, and he's just having a great time. I love this character. And then he dies. Very hopefully that Mr. Samson will carry on his legacy, kind of study his work, and cure other zombies potentially. And I feel like that could be a really good part about the third movie.
With the death of the doctor, the epilogue of this movie kind of sets up the third movie, because we were left questioning what it was going to be about and, who was going to carry on this cure if the doctor was dead. And we do see Cillian Murphy's character come back in the very last 2 minutes of the movie, where he's teaching his daughter about history. And then all of a sudden they see, the main character Spike and his friend that saved him from this cult running down a hill with monsters chasing after them. And, the daughter's like, oh my gosh, are we going to help them? Like, what are we going to do? And he says that, yes, they're going to help them. And they go after them to help them with only 2 people against these 8 monsters.
And then the main theme plays, which was absent from the last one, but was essential part of the first 2 days and weeks. It was like basically the theme song for the whole franchise. And that plays, oh my gosh, where are we going to go from there? Yeah. Where are they going to go from there? I'm excited. I don't know how they're going to probably meet up with Samson again and maybe come together for one last, stand against the disease, whatever, cure it forever. Who knows? And I'm really excited.
I think that after watching the first and second movie, even though it's not my type of thing, I'll definitely be here to watch the third because I want to see how it ends and how they handle it.
And that's essentially it for today, Huskies. You'll catch us next time reviewing the movie Hoppers. Bye, Huskies.